Hello everyone. I wanted to take the time to show you how to do some manipulation with those PUMS files since you have an assignment coming up where you're supposed to use the PUMS files to do comparisons between groups. And I know I've shown this in class, but I want to show it here so that you can see how to perform each of these tasks. So the first thing we're going to do if you open up Canvas is note that there's this Gainesville pums.csv file. You've all seen it. You're going to use something other than the Gainesville one in your assignment. So we're going to download that file. When we download it, it's going to go into my download directory, and there it is right there. Going to open it. It's a CSV file, and if you remember, we hit Control Shift down, you can see that there are 965 observations, not counting that first row, which is the header row. And then if we Control Shift to the right arrow, we've selected the entire data table with all the observations in it. That allows us to do an insert pivot table, and we're going to do it on a new worksheet and click OK. And this is what comes up. So for the comparison, I've already picked a few variables, but what I did was I went through and I looked for something that was a character variable or a categorical variable, and I picked this one called tenure, which kind of shows the number or shows whether whether or not you own or rent your house. And I don't know what you would think here in Gainesville, but the number is fairly high for renting. I'll just assume that. So while you're in the data dictionary, let's take a look at household income. So type in HINCP, and it should take you to numeric. So the comparison we're trying to do is back to the tenure question. Do you own your own home? Do you rent your own home? Or do you have a mortgage on your own home? Or somebody's given you the home without having to pay rent? That might be a student whose parents bought a condo and they're not having to pay rent. So that's a comparison that we're going to try and do. So we need the TEN variable, and we also need the HINC variable. So we have the HINCP variable here. We're going to put it here. Also going to put it down here. Then, as we've illustrated before, we don't need this sum up here. What we really need is we need to change these to counts. So we'll click OK, and we'll click this, change field value setting to count. And now you've got 575 observations of each of those. We're also going to select multiple items and get rid of blanks for 10, and we're also going to select multiple items and get rid of blanks for HINCP. So what you see now, and we'll change this to pivot 1, is you've got a pivot table that's got these observations. This is what we've talked about before, is if you double click in one of these count numbers, it creates a new sheet with all of the 575. Let's make sure, let's scroll down to the bottom. Yeah, and there's 576 minus the first row, which is 575 observations. So this is now your data table. And we're going to change the name to data table for the comparison. So we need 2 columns from this sheet. We're going to create a new sheet where we're going to put our data on it just for the 2 variables of interest that we have. Those variables of interest are the TEN column. There it is right there in column BA. We're going to copy it and we're going to paste it right here. And I'm pasting it just like it is. Then we're going to go back to the data table and we're going to find that HINCP variable. column BP. We're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it. What this copy paste thing does is it just gets all the stuff out of the way for us. Now what we can do is we can actually create kind of the labels. I hit the escape key. So this TENLBL is a label column. We're going to create a feature, which is we're going to write something that's going to look over in the tenure column. We're going to use these definitions that are right here in the data dictionary, and we're going to create some word labels back here. So we're going to do that by going if this equals 1, then we're going to name it, and we'll go here, owned mortgage. So we'll go back to the spreadsheet, and we'll call it owned mortgage. If it's not true, then we want to do another if statement. If A2 is equal to 2, because we already did 1, then we want to say, we'll go back here, that it's owned free and clear. So we'll go back here, owned FNC. If it's not, then we want to have it be go back here, we want it to have it, if it's a 3, we want it to be rented. So go back to our if then statement. We'll say if A2 equals 3, then rented. Else, now we've got our last comment, which is it would be other. So now we just need to close all these parentheses to make sure we get all the way to the end. And when we do that, it changes the 3 to rented because 3 says rented there. Let's just go down and we'll check this out. So it looks like it's working. So we're going to copy this. Let's do the weird one, which is 4. I see a 4 down there. Let's scroll down to 4. Yep, and it called it other. So we've got a formula we can just scroll or paste, cut and paste down to the very end. So now we've got this tenure label, we've got this household income. If we copy this again here, we expand this out so that we can see the whole thing. Now we're ready to actually build some different kind of tables or do our comparison. So one last thing I think we probably want to do is let's sort by smallest to largest. So that's everything with a 1 first, etc. And you can see the household income and then the label and then the household income again. So the reason I did that was so that we could have a meaningful set of variables down at the bottom. Now I'm selecting by holding my left mouse key down and just scrolling down to the bottom, and there's a lot here, so it takes me a minute to scroll to the bottom. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm selecting all the observations of those 2 variables. Then I'm going to go up here and do insert. And I want to do, these are the statistics charts, and there's my box and whisker right there. And by having the labels, I actually made a meaningful labels down here at the bottom. We can also change the way that chart looks. If we were to go back to the top and then change this to a number plus that. Then we've got our commas in there. Unfortunately, we've got our chart down here at the bottom. We're going to take that and cut and move it up to the top where we can see what we're doing, and then paste, just like that. There's a bunch of things that you could do here to kind of understand this a little bit better. First, we could make this thing bigger, and we could change these colors because I can't really see these colors very well. So we go over here to colors, we could do this, and now I can see at least where my X's are in there a little bit better. Notice these observations. You can actually put your cursor over there and see what these outliers are. So each box plot shows the range of income that's associated with the category. In this category, it's owned but has a mortgage. In this category, it's owned free and clear. In this category, it's rented. In this category, it's other. What's really interesting is that you can see that the highest actual income level is owned with a mortgage, but the free and clear has a lower income level, and then rented has a lower income level. You got this weird category of other. We could change our chart title to household income by home ownership state. Now we've got a pretty good chart, and we could make some comparisons. And we could also do some ANOVAs to see whether or not these differences in the means, the X's are the means, are statistically significantly different from each other. Just by observations, it looks like they are. At least two of them are. All right, so that concludes this presentation.